You know what amba is?
Shalom, everyone. Today is Parshat Chayei. We will talk about Parshat Chayei Sarah. Parshat Chayei Sarah discusses a many very interesting topics, but I wanted to point out the issue of davening that comes out to play towards the end of the Parsha. When Yitzchak Avinu, when Eliezer finishes the choosing process of Rivka, he's on his way back with Rivka back to Eretz Yisrael, back to Avraham and Yitzchak, and the Torah says, "V'Yitzchak ba mibo be'er lachai ro'i, v'hu yoshev be'eretz hanegev." Yitzchak is sitting in be'er lachai ro'i, which is in the south, in the Negev, not far from Be'er Sheva, which we'll get back to in a second. And there it says, "Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh lifnot arev, vayisa einav vayar v'nei gmalit ba'im." And Yitzchak goes out. The question is, what does the word lasuach mean? In the translation here, it already says to pray. But the Meforshim discuss this in length, and we'll see in a second, what exactly does the word lasuach mean? Vayetze Yitzchak, Yitzchak went out, and he did lasuach, whatever that is in a second, in the field in the afternoon. And then he picks up his eyes, and he sees that the camels are approaching, the camels that have Eliezer and Rivka on them. So we know here that Yitzchak is around Be'er Sheva, and that he is doing something while he sees them coming. So the Ramban, in length, here explains exactly where this place is and what exactly does it mean. Ba mibo be'er lachai ro'i. He came from the place which is be'er lachai ro'i. So Yomar ki Yitzchak ba'ata mibo be'er lachai ro'i. The pasuk says that he came now. Sheshav mi be'er lachai sheba shama. He came back from the place that is called Be'er Lachai after he came there. So it basically says he came back from where he went back from. Because otherwise it would have said, Shi'ilu amar bami Be'er Lachai roi, hayani resh hadar sham. If it would have said from the beginning that he came straight from Be'er Lachai roi, then would have assumed that's where he lives. It comes to show us that he left his place. He's coming back from where he's coming back to his city from a visit in Be'er Lachai roi. Why does he say all of that? Because he has to explain where does he live. And then he goes on to prove that he was living in Be'er Sheva. Why is that important? Because Be'er Sheva is the place where Avraham Avinu planted his tree that was mentioned in last week's Parsha. And that tree, that Eshel that Avraham planted, is a source of prayer. Because Avraham in that place announced and put out praise Hashem's name in public. That is in that tree in Be'er Sheva. That is why Yitzchak comes back from there and has the need to pray. In the last two lines in the Ramban, V'nei Yitzchak ba min ha'be'er hahi el ir acher asher heta b'derech hiro, v'yatza lifnot erev l'soach b'sadeh im re'av v'ohavav asher sham. In other words, on the one hand, he had the need to daven, but on the other hand, he's on his way back from a visit, so he meets with his friends. So the Ramban basically is saying that yes, there is a need for prayer, but the word lasuach here basically means just to have a conversation and to have a conversation with his friends after being out of town on a business trip, so to speak. The Ibn Ezra says that lasuach is from the word sichim, from the word bushes, that he is walking in between the bushes. The Rashbam says lasuach basadeh is the plant trees. To plant trees, he's going to do his business with the trees that are out in his field. And then Rashi says lasuach is davening, like we so to speak paskin. We'll see that in a second. Lasuach lashon tefillah kmo ishpoch zicho, to pour, so to speak, his discussion. And that discussion is obviously you don't pour a discussion, you pour your prayer in front of Hashem. Rashi's explanation is based off of the Gemara in source number 2, that the Gemara discusses in Brachot what what are the tefillot against? Why do we have 3 davenings a day? Itma Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina Amar tefillot avot tiknun, that the davenings were established by the avot. Avraham was shacharit, and Yitzchak was mincha, and Yaakov was arvit. Yitzchak tiken tefillat mincha sheneimar v'etzei Yitzchak lasuach basade lifnot arev. How do we know that it's mincha? Because of lifnot arev, because it's right before the evening, which is the late afternoon. Ve'en sicha el tefillah, and the conversation is davening because of the pasuk tefillah la'anikiyato v'lifnei Hashem ishpoch sicho, davening, that when the poor person is davening in front of Hashem, he pours his conversation, which is basically what Rashi just said. We also know that mincha is a very important davening. The Gemara in Brachot also discusses the next line. ואמר ביכל באמר רבונה, לעולם יהיה אדם זהיר בתפילת המנחה, שאליהו לא נענה אלא בתפילת המנחה. Mincha is a very important davening, and you should be very careful with it, because Eliyahu Hanavi, with his battle with the Avodah Zarah of the Baal and the Ashtarot, was specifically at Mincha. The meaning of this is that Yitzchak, to a point, is basically, if we go according to these Meforshim, he is doing something in the afternoon. It might be a conversation, it might be planting, it might be walking around in the bushes, it might be davening, and he's doing it specifically in the time of afternoon. The Shulchan Aruch in source number 3 says that when you daven, you should not daven in an open place in the field. ולא יתפלל במקום פרוץ כמו בשדה, מפני שכשהוא במקום צניעות חל עליו אימת מלך וליבו נשבר. When you're in an open field, you don't feel as humble. When you're in a closed place and the king's might is, the awe of the king is upon you, then your heart is more broken, is more in need of davening. And when it's an open field, then you might think maybe that I'm so successful in my business in the field that I don't need to pray, and therefore he's not as humble when he comes to speak with Hashem. I want to mention, I mentioned this halacha because it's odd. If we assume, according to the Gemara, according to Rashi, that Yitzchak was davening, then how is he davening in the field? Shulchan Aruch says you shouldn't daven in the field. You should daven in a closed room. So what exactly is going on here? Even according to them that it is davening. If you saw that according to some of the Meforshim, it doesn't have to be davening, but according to those that say it is, then why is it that he's doing it in an open field? Yitzchak has a special connection and appreciation to the work of the field, to the work of the land, as opposed to Avraham and Yaakov and many other of our sages and forefathers. Yitzchak was not a ro'etzon. He wasn't with the cattle and the sheep. Rather, he worked the land. And we see this in many different points. In source 4, when Yaakov and Esav grow up, and the Torah describes vayigdelu haneharim, vayi Esav ish yodei tzayid ish sadeh, v'Yaakov ish tam yoshev v'ohalim, that Esav is a man of hunting and a man of the field, and as opposed to Yaakov, who is a man who dwells in the tent and learns Torah. It still says, "Vayav Yitzchak et Esav ki tzai befiv." Yitzchak likes and loves Esav more. The Torah says because of the hunting and the deer that he could do with his mouth. Yitzchak likes this idea. Yitzchak likes the fact that Esav has a connection to the field and is not just sitting in a tent and learning. In another place later on, it talks how Yitzchak is planting. Yitzchak plants in the land and he finds success, and he's able to multiply his the crop by in the hundreds, and God is blessing him. Yitzchak doesn't just grow or maintain what he has. He plants. He tries to make the land even better and works hard at it. And then ultimately, when Yaakov comes and maneuvers and tricks Yitzchak to think that he is Esav, the reason Yitzchak accepts Yaakov is because Yaakov puts on the clothes of Esav. But when he gives it to him, when Yaakov gives him the offering, Vayigash Vayishaklo, and Yitzchak gives him a kiss, and he smells his clothes. He smells the clothes and he blesses him. Bless. I want you to. He tells, so to speak. He says that I want the smell, the sentence, the fragrance of the field to be blessed by Hashem. He likes this connection to the field. But the field is it's a very complicated mission. It's not a regular, relatively simple business. The Gemara in source 5 talks about, Reish Lakish says that a man, in order for him to make bread, to have enough food for him to eat, only someone who works his land will be able to eat bread and be filled from it. Only if someone is like a slave to the land will he be able to make enough food for him to provide for his family, to provide for himself enough bread. If he doesn't, if he thinks it's an 8 to 4 job, then he won't have it. It won't be enough. And the Gemara continues in source number 6. All the different crafts in ones will have to stand on the soil. One day they won't be able to be in the sea, and they won't be able to, everyone will have to come off of the sea, will come down to the ground. But working the ground, working the land is something that is not on a high level. Vayirdu, you have to go down for it. It's a low level craft. It's not a high, exciting something that could give you spiritual growth. The Tosfot there says, in a different place, but on this concept, says that the importance of the Kimitzion Tetzet Torah. Why is it that the Torah comes out from Yerushalayim? Kimitzion Tetzet Torah Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. What is the significance? Why is it that the Torah comes out from Zion, from Yerushalayim, from the Beit HaMikdash? Because when you come to the Beit HaMikdash, you see the great Kedusha. You see the Kohanim dealing with their avodah. Even when someone brings Trumot u'Maasrot, he brings the meiser from the fruit that he grew, that is the greatest thing, because you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. Why is that so important? Because when you even though it's something that is, you grew your field, you have crop, you have fruits, you bring it to Yerushalayim. Why is it so great? Because that will bring you back to learning. Because when you have to come to Yerushalayim, you have to give to the Beit HaMikdash. Until it's time for him to eat it, because he sees everyone else in Yerushalayim learning and dealing with Yirat Shamayim and Melechet Shamayim and Avodat Hashem, so it brings him closer to the need to want to learn and not just dealing with his land. So this comes back to the question about Yitzchak. So why is it that Yitzchak, instead of dealing more with Torah like Yaakov, or like Avraham Avinu, who has many other business opportunities, not just the land, which, even just as a metaphor, he's with his boots and he's full with mud, and it's a very earthy dealing. It's not something spiritual. It's not something that you could, it's not a clean business. So why is it that he is doing this? And why is he davening mincha in the middle of all this? So the Rambam in source 7 mentions that the special madrega of the level of the avot of our forefathers was that they were able to connect to Hashem through everything they were doing. וזאת גם כן מדרגת האבות אשר הגיעה קרבתם אל השם יתברך עד שנודע שמו בהם לעולם. Their special level was that their closeness, their connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu was that they were in their name was connected to Hashem. והגיע מתאחד דעותם בהשגתו. They were able with their mind to achieve understanding of Hashem. And despite that, even though they were such on a high level of spirituality, of connection with Hashem, they weren't living by themselves, with no connection to human beings. No, they were still dealing with human beings, and they had money, and they had businesses. And despite the fact that they were very connected, and they had a strong connection with the people, and they had a strong connection with everything that was going on around them, and the business opportunities, and the politics, and everything else that was around it, that was just their physical being as part of being connected with the human beings. But their hearts, their minds, they were always connected to Hashem. And even when they were doing a business deal that they were looking to make a profit of. Even the most dirty field issues. Still, their goal was to get closer through that to Hashem as well. Even more, a higher level. In order for you to be able to create a nation, that as a nation everyone will be able to know Hashem, to worship Hashem, you can't just have a few righteous people who are on a high spiritual level. You need to have a nation that some of them will have to work in physical labor, and some of them will have to deal with politics, and some of them will have to deal with business, and some of them will have to deal with cattle and growing and planting. But all that is part of being part of the big world, part of being connection with Hashem. And Rav Kook in source number 8 points this out and connects this to the point of specifically through Mincha that Yitzchak Avinu exactly then connects to Hashem while he's in the field. Atfilah hamatmedet shel haneshama, the constant davening of the soul, mitametzet hi latzet min ha'elem el hagilui. It tries to come out from its high place to the out. להתפשט על כל הכוחות החיים של כל הרוח וכל כוחות חיי הגבייה כולה. Not just to be cornered to the spiritual being, but rather to spread out to the entire body. והיא משתוקקת גם כן לגלות את מהותה וכוח פעולתה על כל הסביבה, על כל העולם והחיים. It wants to spread as far as it can, as wide as it can, on all aspects of life. And then in the next point, in the next section, he points out, Hakol homeh, sho'ef, oeg, v'shokek, lechemdat shlemut mekor ha'elyon. Everything aspires to be part of this higher level of Hashem. Meromemu adam b'tfilat kol ha'etzub. Through davening, the man can elevate everything that's around it. Me'ached hu imo et kol hayesh. It unifies everything that's around him. Ma'aleh et hakol, and then he's able to raise it up to the source of the blessing, to the source of life, which is obviously Hashem. So that's why dafka davening of mincha, when it's in the middle of the day, when you're in the middle of your business day, you stop everything and daven. Then it's a much more important than even than the morning or in the evening. Because in the morning before you start, or in the evening when you're all done, it's easier to stop and focus on Hashem, focus on avodat Hashem. But dafka, while you're in the middle of davening, when you're in the middle of your workday, that you are able to stop everything, connect to Hashem, but you're not really able to connect from your business. You're in the middle of a conference call. You're in the middle of going back to something else. But still, you take that time, and in the middle of the day, you make sure that there is time to connect to Hashem. It elevates everything else that you're going through, everything else you're dealing with during the middle of the day. you're able through that to elevate that also to Hashem. That is the real ultimate goal. And that is what Yitzchak teaches us. Even though he's in the middle of the business in the field, he's planting, he's talking with his friends, he's working, he's in the middle of something else, he stops to talk with Hashem. And that's why Mincha is so important. So yes, maybe you're better off davening Mincha in a closed room and not in the open field. Yitzchak was on a higher level. But if you're able to really connect everything that's in the field, everything that's going around you to Hashem, and you're able to do that even in your own open field like Yitzchak is, that's an unbelievable accomplishment, and which is really the ultimate goal, to elevate everything that's around us, to elevate everything that we are doing to the level of avodat Hashem, even when it's something that is not learning Torah, not davening, even if it's a regular business or planting or stuff like that. We're able to elevate all of that to Hashem. That is the ultimate goal, and may we all be zochet to do that in our own personal life. Have a wonderful day, and Shabbat Shalom.